Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hablemos Mental Health, part of Voces Comunitarias monthly live sessions. We continue to commemorate BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month. This being the end of the month does not mean that we should stop talking about the importance of mental health. This is a conversation that we should have every month of the year. So today we have Mariana, Hector, and Mike to talk with us about mental health and how different life experiences have impacted their mental health. Mariana was born in Guanajuato, Mexico. She came to the US when she was 2 years old. She is a WAFR student in Spartanburg. Hector was born in the US and raised in Mexico for the majority of his childhood, also a WAFR student. And we have Mike Jan from PASOs. He was born in Mexico and lived in California for the majority of his life, and he's also Co-Interim Executive Director for PASOs. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you to our audience for being here with us to listen to you guys and have this very important conversation. So we're going to do a brief icebreaker just to kind of, loosen up, since this is a topic that comes with a lot of stigma and it's taboo in the Latinx community. What is you guys' favorite hot sauce? Let's start with Mariana, and then we do Hector and then Mike.
So my favorite hot sauce is salsa verde, which is made out of tomatillo. So it's green sauce.
My mom does this really good salsa roja, red sauce, and I think its main component is like chile de árbol.
I too love the green salsa that's fresh, but in the bottles, I love tapatio, which is from California, and chicken wing sauce. Chicken wing. So, yeah. What about you, Gia?
Spicy. I like rocoto. Rocoto is originally from Peru, and they make this sauce called uchucuta from it, and it's delicious. So let's get to it. You guys are ready? So there's a lot of stigma, right, and a lot of struggle sometimes in the Latinx community in discussing mental health, and especially now, there's a lot of uncertainty in our world. So that's why I think, and this is very important to have these conversations. What do you guys think it's hard to talk about mental health in the Latinx community? What do you think is difficult maybe to open up emotionally as a Latinx women, as a Latino men? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I think it's difficult because, number one, I think we don't have the vocabulary necessary for it. So if I'm feeling depressed or I'm feeling anxious, I don't really know how to explain that to like my parents, let's say, just because it's not a thing in the Hispanic culture. And yeah.
I agree with Mariana. I think from little kids, we weren't taught how to say the, I feel, I want, I think phrases. And, growing up, there's also that gender role component to it. And so, being part of this patriarchy society where men are seen as weak if they reveal how they feel and how their emotions are. And I believe that can become toxic to a certain point. Where men just won't, get out what they're trying to say, get out what they really feel, and all because of the gender roles.
Yeah, and I just like to add that it's there's a structure that gets maintained that allows for the male experience, which is mine, a certain set of emotions that are acceptable, right? There's certain ones that are allowed to be, and the ones that are not allowed to be, and therefore that constrains people's abilities to express themselves. Being sad is not okay, but being angry is. Dominating, and so that really affects and limits people's ability to understand and interpret their own realities.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times we forget to, I guess, validate those feelings and rather try to maybe brush them off or put them under the rug, kind of like that. There's expression, put those feelings or those problems under the rug. What have you guys heard growing up about mental health? What are some of the cultural stigmas associated with mental health in the Latinx community?
I think most of the mental health, at least growing up, revolved around, let's say, developmental delays, like kids with autism or just stuff like that. And then it also revolves around, let's say, people who do drugs, and just if they don't end up being well, if their mental health is like doesn't end up being good, then I think that's usually what it revolves around. I don't think it revolves around a lot on like anxiety, depression, eating disorders, things that are still mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I think this question directly ties into the systemic component part of it, of how like when we're younger, and you know, especially for in my experience as a male Latinx member, you know, if you show your emotions, you'll get phrases like only little girls say that, or don't be a little girl, don't be a woman. And you know, it creates that binary system where you either have to be this or you're an outcast, basically.
Yeah.
And for me, since I have a mother from El Salvador and an American dad, just having that blended identity, you know, having feeling incomplete in both worlds, never feeling enough or insufficient, uh, just kind of always added pressure to this insecurity. So feeling like I need to overcompensate, or work harder or prove myself, you know, or that my identity is based on somebody else's perspective of myself really impacts the way that I feel about myself, right? So it's just been very difficult, not feeling completely comfortable with my foot in either world.
Okay. So Mariana, Hector, and Mike, you know, you guys bring up good points. The fact that being labeled, and I think at one point one said that maybe mental health is associated with mental illness. And in my experience, I've heard that a lot. Where if I'm in, let's discuss mental health, a person will tell me, "Oh, I don't have mental health. You know, that does not pertain to me. I don't have mental health." And I've noticed that link. You know, they're associating mental illness with mental health, and maybe don't know the difference. So the fear of being labeled as loco, you know, crazy Spanish word, it's what plays into that cultural stigma and prevents people from seeking that assistance and discussing mental health. Um, all of you have been part of two cultures, right? The American culture and the Latinx culture. How was your experience navigating those two cultures? Do you feel that it impacted or affected your mental health having to, you know, be in some way American or try to fit into the American culture, and then also try to go by the values and the standards that the Latinx culture has?
Yeah, I think it was a challenge for me because 8 hours of the day I was in school, and then the rest of the time I was at home. And I think that it kind of made me, I think it's called code switching, where you change from one to another. And in school, I always felt like a little like I didn't belong there just because I didn't relate to a lot of the people, like a lot of people who were non-Hispanic. And at home, I just had to kind of become that, you know, Latinx female and have that part of my identity there. But it was definitely a challenge because in some ways the American culture and the Hispanic culture really clash. So it's trying to deal with the clashing of that and how that affected me mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, I agree with Mariana. Having to navigate those two cultures, literally, have to, you know, we're in the situation where we have to act a certain way, we have to say certain things in certain environments, and you know, it puts us in that. Well, it has put me specifically in this identity struggle, right? Um, I go to school at Walford, and most of my, you know, classmates are American, and so I have to, you know, code switch, but I have to find a way to fit in, if that makes sense. And so I'm always seen and labeled as, you know, Latinx or the other, and going home, you know, my parents always have a lot of pride about the Latinx culture, and my mom about living in the city, and a lot of pride of being from Mexico City, and so they kind of set up this relative, um, just well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm caught in this like border between, if I'm not Mexican enough and I'm not American enough, then what am I? And that's a struggle that really does affect my mental health a lot.
And I'm gonna give a lighthearted example. So being a foot in both worlds, there's examples and times when you just don't fit, right? And uh, going and listening to music and dancing and not knowing how to dance a certain dance, not knowing a certain style of music, it's embarrassing, right? Like, oh, I don't know how to salsa dance. People expect me to, or I don't know these dance moves, and I wish I did, like, and it's just not that these are just pieces and examples of not feeling like I'm fully I'm not whole in that way.
Yes, exactly. It can be challenging managing the expectations that you have from both cultures, and it can put a lot of stress on us. And sometimes that stress can turn into different things like anxiety or feelings of not belonging that stay over a long period of time and can affect or impact our mental health and our well-being. It's interesting, Mike, that you gave that example because I hear it all the time. My husband's Puerto Rican, but he doesn't dance. I mean, he just doesn't dance. And people tell him, but Boricuas have that in their blood. Like, how can you not dance? And how can you not have any rhythm? And he just kind of goes, oh, my parents didn't teach me. He doesn't know what to say. And in a way, it makes him feel like some form of shame that he never learned. And he's tried. It just, he says, it's just not in my blood. So it's the expectation that you should know or how to do things that maybe doesn't come easy to you, or it's just not part of who you are.
Yeah, it affects how you feel.
So in my experience working with Latinx families and immigrant families, the majority of parents have said in one way or another that the reason they immigrate or they come to the US is to find a better life for themselves, for their families, for their kids, and to be able to provide for their kids and maybe give them a better education. You guys being college students and Mike, growing here in the US and being a college graduate, how had those expectations and the pressure of doing well academically, professionally, affected your emotional well-being?
Yeah, I think for me, not pursuing a higher education was never a choice. It was something that I was always like going to do just because I see how much my parents work, how much they sacrificed to come here to this country. So when I was little, I couldn't help them pay like bills and stuff, but I could always get like straight A's. If I could do that, I was helping them in some way. And so I think it has definitely affected my mental health because it has pushed me and it has made me, I guess, stress in a way about what my expectations are and what I have to do. It's not a choice. I just have to do it.
Yeah, I agree. To me, it was presented, in those two ways. Look at how hard we work, and the way out of that is to get good grades and get to college and keep going. And so that adds on a lot of stress, a lot of expectations, and definitely deters mental health in that way, because now we're stuck in this system where we have to be here, otherwise we're seen as a failure, or we're seen as the kid that your parents don't want if you don't do what they expect, right? So yeah.
I would just say that, coming here to the South from California, You know, there just seems to be this glass techo, right? That like we're trying to break through here. That elsewhere has had a lot more larger amounts of people pushing upward and achieving and just attaining and normalizing the presence of our existence in all aspects of all arenas, right? In all workforces, in all levels of government and everywhere. So that in itself, the expectations and the surprises that we are achieving what we're achieving is it's maddening. It's infuriating that like, don't be surprised. Why are you surprised that we're doing well? You know, that affects our mental health. Like, don't these microaggressions of oh, this or that, you know, why would you think those things? You know, simply because of the way I look and my background and things like that. So when it comes to you know, professionally, academically, those kinds of things are what I think really affect our mental health. It makes us feel bad.
Yes. Talking about microaggressions, Mike, and this is for all of you. Do you think the system treated you differently because you are a person of color, because you're Latinx? And if so, have you experienced discrimination and or systemic racism? And how did that impact your mental health?
Yeah, I think the system has made Hispanics and Latinx individuals work twice as hard. Or even like something simple as coming in only knowing Spanish and having to go through ESL classes and being labeled as being like a year or two behind, that kind of challenges you and your mental health. I would say it kind of makes you feel like you're not smart enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. We definitely have to work extra hard to get to the same opportunities that our, white counterparts get to. But in the sense, I feel like there has been a lot of silencing of Latinx voices, and in my experience, like I've been afraid to speak out or to say something because of that, systemic characterization of silencing minorities' voices, specifically within the Latinx community. And doing work to amplify these voices, I think we've all realized that how like the systemic system really is a cycle that if we don't try to break out or if we don't try to break down, it will just keep going. And it affects our mental health pretty adversely, I would say.
The experience of a person of color in general, you know, there's this expectation that we are the experts on our cultural everything, history, background, you know, just everything. And when you don't have the answer, or when you are constantly being the liaison or like, I mean, that's doing the work is great to connect, but like we're not the experts on our own lives, you know what I mean, let alone our entire complex communities. So just constantly being approached, because of our person of colorness, that being the biggest definition of our identity really affects the way we feel, I think.
Exactly. You guys, all of you do amazing work for the Latinx community and giving back and assisting the community. Could you tell us what life experiences have shaped your desire to give back to your community? And briefly tell us what all are you involved in the community?
So I think being an immigrant myself has really shaped my desire to give back to the community, just because I had to search for the opportunities and I had to go out of my way to like seek those opportunities. I never really had them handed to me, or even as simple as like no one helped me get into college or even apply to colleges or look for colleges. My parents don't know English, so it was all up to me. And I think that every child should have the ability to seek a higher education if that's what they want, and that sometimes in life, like some things are out of your control and some things are out of the control of children to be living in poverty or to not having, those opportunities. So because of that, I like working with children, and I work with an after-school program called Arch Ministries, which is connected with Arcadia Elementary.
For me, growing up, I was the first person in my family to pick up English. And so I had a lot of added responsibilities. I had to translate for my parents, sometimes difficult conversations, sometimes as simple as, groceries. I had to fill out papers, and I had to do the same for other family members. And I think that has transitioned more now to where I can work for inclusivity or intersectionality within the communities that I am part of. And I volunteer at St. Luke's Free Medical Clinic. And my role there, is trying to be more inclusive towards the Latinx community, and trying to create that comfortable zone so that they can, share their medical, I guess, just requests, because it is important. But I think one of the most important things that I'm doing now with Mariana and other team members, is just the amplification of Latinx voices, and just trying to give back into our community by amplifying our community's voices. So yeah.
Wonderful.
So for me, I know that immigrants and diversity just have so much to contribute to the vibrancy of life and all the different sounds and beats and musics and smells and foods, and it's like, if we're all going to paint a mural, if everybody has a paintbrush and a different color, we're going to have a much more beautiful image that we can collectively build together, right? Otro mundo es posible, right? Another world is possible, but it's going to take all of us building it together and lifting each other up. So I know that with all the contributions and strengths that each community brings, and ours specifically, since that's who we're talking about right now, lifting each other up, the future leaders of our community, such as Mariana, Hector, Gia, right? Like giving and amplifying, providing platforms that allows for representation, visibility, recognition, acknowledgement, and with that strengthens the fortitude that we are here, and we are something that is just going to help make everything stronger, and everybody's going to benefit when you rise by lifting others, essentially.
Exactly. You lifting others. I think that's what it comes down to, right? It right now, by doing this, we're showing people that it's okay to talk about this topic, mental health. It's okay to have these conversations, and we're representing. People may have similar feelings, may have similar experiences to what you have shared, and similar struggles. And the fact that sometimes it's hard, or I think Hector mentioned that sometimes we don't have those safe places to share how we feel, and to feel safe to express and just be vulnerable. Those are important things to keep in mind. With that said, how do you take care of your mental health? What do you do to maintain a state of well-being? And do you practice self-care activities? Can you share that with us?
So recently I have started meditating, and it has helped tremendously. I think everyone should try it at least like 10 minutes a day. It helps you keeps you grounded, I feel like, throughout. And I also like working out and listening to music.
Yeah, music has also been pretty important to me. Recently I've done a lot of reading, like short stories, poems that don't exactly have to do with theoretical stuff, if that makes sense. I like working out too.
And for me, so I have a lot of energy. So I'm the singer of a rock band. So I jump around and scream and get it all out that way. And I go walk through the woods a lot, go hiking, but sometimes that just isn't enough, you know. And I've come to acknowledge and recognize that I needed a little bit more than that for me personally. And I sought out, you know, people to talk to, professionals, you know, therapists, counselors, and even took, you know, medication to help balance the I realized there was, you know, areas that could be more you know, put in balance, you know, chemically, because like Gia always says in her presentations, that if one part of your body is sick, it affects the entire body, and the brain is part of the entire system, which means it also needs medicine and can have imbalances and things like that. And, so yeah, I wanted to, you know, I just want to normalize the concept of seeking therapy and seeking counseling, because, and it's great. Like, you work through things, you talk through things, you have new realizations about why you are behaving a certain way or the way you view things. And then if you and if some sort of medication is necessary, you feel better, you know, you wake up a little happier or whatever it is, you know.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We have some questions from the audience. Let's see. Here's one from, oh, how can churches help promote good mental health?
I can shed some light in that. Specifically within the Latinx community, I think religion is a important part of the culture. And I shared this one experience I had when I was a really young kid. Um, I think I was sad for some reason, and one of my church friends came up to me and he said, you know, God is with you. And you know, I was like, I think at this moment I need someone with skin, you know. And you know, not to say that God isn't with us, but just in the sense that I feel like churches should strive to remove the stigma from mental health and create a safer space, you know, reach out and just take care of one another would be a good way to promote good mental health.
Thank you, Hector. And there's one from, there we go, from Nina Richards. What is the difference? How can we explain the difference between mental health and mental illness? Do you guys want me to take that one? Or who? Yes. Okay.
I just want to add a little bit on it, but I'm not sure I can answer this completely. But everyone, so like you have physical health, and like I think Mike was saying, you also have mental health. And mental health, you can't see it, but you have to always like do your best to keep it well. So that's what I would add about mental health. Someone else can add about mental illness.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you can answer. Maybe it's the actual diagnosis of something. I don't know. That's my guess. But
just like Mariana said, we all have mental health just like we have physical health, right? We all have feelings. We all struggle at some point or another in our lives. We experience sadness, anger, happiness, a range of emotions. When we talk about mental illness, it's something that affects us in a different level, right? It affects how we think, it affects how we feel, how we behave, how we interact with others. So it's I guess those feelings that have gotten it has become dysfunctional, or it's causing for us to struggle in our daily life. There are many different type of mental illnesses, and they have different symptoms. They have a different way they impact people in their lives in different ways. So just so that I won't go into a sermon here, you know, like we all have mental health, mental illness. Not everyone that struggles in some point in their life with their emotional well-being will have a mental illness. It's just that it stays for a longer period of time and impacts our daily functioning. And we'll share this from Abraham Dueñas. Yes, not being able to do a respectable grito mexicano bums him out.
Can anybody here do a grito?
No. Hector, can you?
I would not like to try right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose any more cred.
Thank you so much, Mariana, Hector, Mike, for being open about your experiences. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your feelings with our community. Such an important message for all. Someone said, I'm loving the topic and the great tips on how to handle my mental health. Again, for our audience, for everyone, continue to have these conversations at home. Continue to have these conversations in your organizations, at church. It is so very important, especially now, more now than ever, because of the global pandemic we're experiencing, because there's so much stress in our world, in our country. So remember, our mental health, it's just as important as our physical health. Encourage you to engage in self-care activities that will promote or that will keep your mental well-being. If you need assistance, don't hesitate to reach out. We will have a slide following the presentation on resources. Mike, you want to say something on Voces Comunitarias?
Well, in general, Voces Comunitarias is a initiative that this is the 4th year, and it's constantly changing. So the first 2 years, it was done all in Spanish in Colombia. 3rd year was done in Spartanburg. It was a half day bilingual. This year, we were going to do it in Charleston, but because of COVID, we had to go virtual. So we've been doing it like this: half an hour of English, half an hour of Spanish, a discussion. It could be two people, 4 people. And we did it every Saturday of May. But now we're reforming the way that we're going to approach this. We hope to be able to do it again next year in the month of Hispanic Heritage, Hispanic Heritage Month. But in the meantime, we're hoping to do monthly sessions like this. So if you have ideas, if you want to get involved, reach out to any of us and we can integrate you into our meetings. We are very collaborative. The meetings are fun, and it's just a great group to be a part of. And you're networking. The whole point is networking and lifting others, right? So yes, everybody's welcome. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Gia. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you for Hector for being a part of this and being vulnerable and for being leaders in the community.
I think we have one more question before we go offline. How do you encourage a family member to get help with mental health? Some family has this stigma that they don't need it.
I think, in my experience, I think we have to remember that we're all human and we all experience the same things, or maybe not the same things, but we experience nonetheless. And, it's okay to feel whatever that person is feeling. It's okay to go with that struggle, and it's okay to ask for help. We're social beings, and part of being social, I think, is asking for help.
Yeah, and I would say just like acknowledge people's feelings, right? Acknowledge what you're going through. I hear you. I'll sit with you, whatever you need. If you want me to hug and or if you just want me to sit there silently, I acknowledge what you're experiencing, and let me know how I can be there for you. And what you're going through is real, and we'll see what we can do about it.
Exactly. Yes, it's all about validating the feelings, right? And it's a big step. It's a big step to take to reach out and seek assistance, especially when there's a lot of stigma. Like this comment says, there's stigma in the family. So sometimes it's better when the professional reaches out. Sometimes that works. So if the family wants to reach out to a professional and have that referral, and then the professional can reach out to the family member and have a conversation. It doesn't mean they're receiving services. It just means that they can have a conversation about what it's available for them and how they will benefit from it. And then they can make the decision whether that's something they're looking for or not.
Yeah, and show them examples. Show them successful examples. This person that you know, it worked.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. That was a wonderful question. So with that, we're going to close our session. Thank you all for hanging with us and for this conversation. Mariana, Hector, Mike, love that you guys could participate in this conversation. I hope we can do it again sometime. Thank you all. Sending all of you positive vibes. Have a great, restful weekend. And